When a cooperating teacher is working with a student teacher, one of the most crucial components involves the introductory conference. This videotape will outline strategies to consider when conducting the first meeting with the student teacher. In addition, this tape will also discuss and demonstrate effective strategies for a final conference or a concluding conference. The first conference on this tape will demonstrate behaviors and topics to discuss in an initial meeting with a student teacher. As you view the conferences demonstrated on this tape, look for some of these behaviors. Friendliness. Show the student teacher you care about them. Openness. Give credit to the ideas expressed by the student teacher. Warm regard. Demonstrate a caring and warm approach through eye contact, body posture, and tone of voice. Listen. Demonstrate through restatement that you hear the student teacher. Empathy. Relate something from your student teaching experience or even your first year of teaching and share that with the student teacher. Questions. Ask the student teacher to tell you something about herself. And then finally recognize that this conference will be teacher-directed. The cooperating teacher will do a lot of talking at that first meeting. Topics to cover in the first conference will vary from situation to situation. We have included on this tape some examples of those topics. Many of these items may be discussed several times during the first weeks of the student teaching experience. Here are some of the examples. Personal space and materials should be shared with the student teacher. A handbook of the school should be given to the student teacher. A seating chart and roster and names of students should be also shared. A planned schedule of when the student teacher will be teaching. Identify a guide for lesson planning and share that with them also. A daily schedule of your classroom, when and where the students are to be, will be helpful information for the student teacher. Guided observation. What they are to look for during the first week or so of student teaching will also be helpful. Familiarize the student teacher with your room and give them a tour of your building. Share classroom rules and information about your class. And finally, outline your expectations for the student teacher. Although this list is extensive, you may identify other topics as well to discuss with a student teacher. Now let's view the conference with a student teacher that demonstrates these appropriate behaviors. See if you can identify the appropriate behaviors demonstrated and the topics covered during the first conference with a student teacher.
Stephanie, we've had a chance to meet briefly, and we've walked down from the faculty room and so on, but what I thought we ought to do before we have to go into our next meeting is just take a few minutes to get acquainted and talk a little bit about the student teaching. I know you have some questions.
Yes.
and some things you might be concerned about. Tell me a little bit about your family, your background.
Well, I'm the youngest of 2 kids, and I've lived in Overland Park most of my life, except I was born in Buffalo, New York.
So how'd you get out from Buffalo?
My father was transferred from his job, but we're not transferring anymore.
Most of the time you've been here in Kansas.
Yeah, for about 19 years.
How did you select Emporia State? Why did you decide to go down there if you've been in the Kansas City area?
Well, my initial plans were for me to go to another school, and then I read something about Emporia State being the top as far as teacher education, and that's what I really wanted to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my main push to going to Emporia State. So
when you did your observations and so on, what grades did you work in?
I did some observation in 3rd grade mostly, and then I
Good.
went to a Head Start here in Emporia.
So you've had lots of different kinds of experiences at different levels. That's going to work well.
Mm-hmm.
How did you select 3rd grade as the area you want a student teach in?
Well, I did, like I said, I did most of my observation in 3rd grade, and then when I was in high school, I was a 3rd grade aide where I did a lot of the paperwork, busy work for the 3rd grade teachers
good.
to
There's
free
a lot
them
of
up
that,
to
yeah.
work with the kids. But
Oh, this is good already.
so basically I felt more comfortable with 3rd grade and that I knew the kids and maybe how they acted, and I'm sure as the semester goes on that I'll learn more about them. And
What concerns about student teaching do you have? What are you worried about?
oh, just working closely with you as far as doing the same things, as far as discipline and things like that. I don't want to say one thing and then you turn around and do something else. I want to know let the kids know that we work together as a team. And
Yeah, that's a major concern. I've had student teachers before, not for a couple of years, but I think that teamwork, letting them know that we're together. When I was student teaching, I had a cooperating teacher who really expected me to do things exactly the same as she did. And what I'd like you to feel free to do is to do some things a little bit differently. We don't want to openly contradict each other,
Right.
but I don't want you to become a clone of me. I want you to do things that are comfortable for you. I want you to have an opportunity to take some risks.
I will, but
Yeah.
I'll clear a lot of them. I'll show you exactly what I'll be doing too.
Yeah, and I think that's important that we spend some time planning together, making sure that you know so I don't throw you a curve and so that I don't throw you any. If you've been in third grade before, you know that third grade is a transition year.
Right.
That the kids are going to be expected this year to work more independently than they've worked before. One of our major skills is handwriting, and we're going to try to teach them to move from manuscript to cursive. We're going to try to move them from being dependent readers that do a lot in groups and so on to being independent readers. For a lot of the kids, particularly in this school, they'll do fine. But we also begin to have some insecurities. In the first few weeks of school, you and I will both have to work really carefully to make sure that that school is a positive and successful experience and that the kids don't feel insecure. And I think we can do that by reassuring, by letting them know that it's okay to make mistakes in our classroom. It's one of my major things is that it's okay to make mistakes. I also like creativity, and I think our principal will support us a great deal if we do murals and maps and try flower things and science experiments and anything that you feel like you want to try. If it doesn't work, well, that's all right. And if it does work, then we'll have a good idea that we can maybe use in future times.